It's time to have this discussion. Loki versus Zoro, who is stronger and why? So this has been on my mind since Luffy asked Loki to become Nakama, right? Because at first I'm like, yo, sick, yes. But then I've heard a couple people talking about it, and they're like, I don't really like it because, you know, that he might be stronger than Zoro and Sanji. Definitely probably stronger than Sanji, but I heard, you know, there's a YouTuber out there named Mr. Morge, very respected. I love Morge. He said that there might be a huge gap between Zoro and Loki, and that's why he doesn't really like Loki for Nakama. Right? I get that. I understand that. And then I was sitting there thinking, I was like, but is Loki is it that much of a gap between the two? Like, what? And then the last chapter came out, and I'm like, there actually might be a way bigger gap than what we're all thinking right now. Because, so, a little bit of a spoiler, if you haven't caught up to 1153, listen. Loki got thrown off the Sun Realm the day he was born. Yeeted. I'm telling y'all, like, thrown off and fell thousands of feet down. Boom, plummeted. And then fought a giant bear and killed it, decapitated it. We don't know if that was with his bare hands. It kind of wouldn't make sense because there was, like, no blood on his hands. He had blood on him, but there wasn't, like, he don't got claws. He don't got, like, teeth from what we could see. He's got the little horns, but, like, we know his eyes are crazy. So, was it the eyes? Does he have, like, the same thing that Saturn had where you could just look at you and then your head explodes? I don't think so, but it has to be something. There has to be something there because he decapitated the bear, which is a weird way to kill a bear without any weapons, right? And so let's talk about feats, right? Because I ran a poll on my YouTube and there was only 37 votes, but I ran the poll. Who would win, Zoro or Loki, right? And a couple people were like, well, right now there's no feats from Loki, so we got to go with Zoro. And that was my first initial thought as well. I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. We don't really have much from Zoro. I was going to make this video way later, but now I'm thinking, we got some feats that we could honestly argue about. And Morge honestly brought up some really good topics because we got to understand that before Loki was chained up, he had a 2.8 billion bounty. Okay? That is nothing to scoff at. He had no crew. He was a solo dolo motherfucker. He didn't have nobody ravaging the seas with him. It was just him. So a 2.8 billion bounty, just him, is insane. Now, you could argue that a bunch of that bounty could have been from, like, the cursed shit that went through, you know, that just him killing Harold, right? Which he did, right? So they could have just inflated his bounty because of the lies of his cursed life, right? So it's not like he had 2.8 billion bounties because he was ravaging the seas and going, you know, to island and terrorizing everybody, which I don't doubt that he did. But he could have an inflated bounty because of, you know, the curse of his life, right? His mom died, the horse died, and then his dad died, and, like, you know. So maybe him killing King Harold, air quotes, inflated his bounty a little bit. Maybe, right? And I don't doubt that he did, you know, cause havoc along the sea, right? I think the government was like, bro, Loki knows that we are behind his dad. Like, the death of his dad is on our hands. We have Harold's blood on our hands. Even though Loki killed him, probably. Even though he killed him, he knows that the government's blood is on his hands. So we need to put a fucking huge bounty on that boy. A huge bounty on that boy to make him look, you know, alert. Loki is wanting to come after the government. I don't know if Loki fully knew that it was the government, but I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass. This is all coming off the top of my head. But so that, right? He has a 2.8 bounty, 2.8 billion bounty on his own. Now, as a child, as a 1-day-old, not even a full day, a 5-minute-year-old gets thrown off the fucking Sun Realm. Now, we got to understand, Kaido's feat. He was a full-grown adult with a devil fruit already, and he jumped off of Sky Island and survived. Okay? He has insane durability. If Loki has anywhere near that durability, he showed it off as a 5-minute-year-old. So could you imagine the durability he has now? right? And like he was chained up, so when he was being attacked, it did hurt him. We don't know if he has a devil fruit or not. It's kind of looking like it. He might not, but so we don't know if the sea prism was like weakening him. So when he got attacked by Shamrock and Gunko, that could have been weakening him. That's why he was bleeding. That's why the swords pierced him, right? But also like because I'm looking at this like, well, Zoro damaged Kaido, right? And Kaido was in full zone form when he damaged Kaido. So we can't sleep on the power of Zoro, but at the same time, Loki just might be the most pure, raw strength person of, like, he might be the strongest character we've ever met. Like, in just pure rawness, pure raw strength, he might be the strongest character we've met. And then he might be the most durable we met as well. So we know Zoro is very, very, very durable for his size, but you got to look back. You're only as good as your last fight. Okay, so Loki's last fight was against Shanks. Okay, Shanks took him out. We don't have any, context for that fight. We don't know if Shanks low diffed him, extreme diffed him. We don't know. Shanks could have went in there and had a freaking 5-day, 6-day war with Loki before it wore him out and then chained him up. But the thing is, how far was he away from elbaph? Because if he just went in there, manhandled Loki and then had to take him all the way back to elbaph, I'm kind of like, he must have low diffed him. Because if he just went in there that easy and then wiped him out and then had to take his ass all the way back to elbaph, wherever they fought, and then chained him up, that's a whole process. Like, Loki didn't wake up at all. Like, was this just Shanks's pure form raw hockey, just, like semi-automatic blasting at Loki, just keeping him suppressed? Like, what, how did he just, nullify everything? Maybe he chained him up with Sea Prism Stone. Maybe he does have a devil fruit, and maybe Shanks knew that, and maybe he wrapped him up with Sea Prism, and then that's how he got him all the way back. Who knows? But that's where my mind is. How did that happen? But then you look at Zoro's last major fight. I'm not talking about the one on fucking Egghead Island with Lucci, because we're just gonna not talk about that one, okay? But we're gonna talk about the major one with King. And that was a battle literally to the brink of death. And without the rumble balls or whatever Chopper's medicine was that he gave Zoro probably loses that fight. Like, I hate to say it, Zoro fans. Without the help of Chopper, Zoro probably loses that fight. So, in terms of pure raw strength, I'm going to give the slight edge to Loki. In terms of durability, it seems like they're kind of tied. Right? Maybe the slight edge to Loki. We know Zoro is very durable, and it's like Zoro's movement, right? He would be able to, I feel like, outmaneuver Loki, but we don't know. It seems to me that Loki and a bunch of other people has a fucking super advanced observation hockey where he has future sight, right? He might be able to just see where Zoro's going to be zipping to with his future sight. So that's going to be a huge problem for Zoro, right? Because Zoro just found out he had Conqueror's Haki. And if he could tap into that and maybe coat, Enma, draw the Conqueror's Haki out instead of all the armament Haki and just, that would be insane as well. If Enma could tap into the Conqueror's Haki. So, like, that's an if, right? But it's a good if. And you could put it in the argument that Zoro could damage Loki pretty good. I see this going into like an extreme diff battle, but I could see Loki. Yeah, I know, me too. I could see Loki coming out on top, to be honest. I don't think he's like that big of a gap though. I don't think it's like such a huge gap where Zoro literally, because we're talking fight to the death. I don't think Zoro gets wiped. I think Zoro makes Loki bleed. He stabs him a bunch. He might cut an arm off. I don't know. But, I think maybe because Zoro is good at reading opponents. He knew King. He figured it out. When he turns the flames on, he's attacking. When he turns them off, he's defending. So I need to attack him when he's attacking, right? So maybe he knows that his eyes are the secret weapon, right? And maybe he attacks the eyes. He goes after the eyes. I know, like, we don't know if homeboy Loki has future sight or not, and so he could kind of negate that by just like not letting Zoro get close to his eyes. But we don't, like, Zoro's the king of hell. This is the king of hell versus the king of elbaph that we're talking about, right? And we know that Zoro probably isn't at Mihawk level yet, but can Mihawk beat Loki? That's a reasonable question. Could Mihawk beat Loki? He might, right? He actually might. That actually might be a Loki L right there. But because we know Shanks beat Loki, right? Obviously Zoro's not Shanks, but we also don't know the context of that fight. If it was a low diff, now we're talking here. All right, maybe Zoro has a chance. I don't think the gap is as big as some people are making it seem, but I do think Loki is a little bit stronger. I do think in a fight to the death, he would barely come out on top and he would win. Sheer raw strength, sheer tenacity. He's, probably the strongest character that we've met so far in terms of just pure raw strength, size, obviously, and durability. Zoro would just have to out-stamina him. He would have to have Chopper in there because that's what happened against King, and I don't think King you can't compare the fight from King and Zoro to Zoro and Loki because I think Loki wipes the floor with King on pretty easily, just grabs him, smashes him a bunch of times. Like, what can King really do to hurt Loki, right? Zoro has Enma. He could slash up Loki. He can move around, slash his Achilles maybe, get him to where he's falling, where he's not as big. Maybe Endgame Zoro, I would say. Endgame Zoro probably beats Loki because Endgame Zoro is going to surpass Mihawk. If he surpasses Mihawk, in my mind, I do think Mihawk beats Loki. But at the same time, maybe not. Maybe not. But I do think Endgame Zoro wins. Right now, currently, I don't think Zoro beats Loki, and then that is also why I don't think Loki's going to join the Straw Hats. It's just that simple. The math doesn't add up. Zoro is not stronger than Loki, so therefore he is not going to be joining the Straw Hats, if that makes sense. It is fun to talk about. It's fun to think about. But, Loki does have those feats of he fell off the Atom Tree at 1 year old and survived, killed a bear, climbed back up. That's insane. He had a 2.8 billion bounty by himself. That's insane. That's telling us that he might be the strongest single character of all time without any help. And he hasn't done anything but be chained up to a tree for 6 years, so we don't know how much he's been training his observation haki. Like, literally, that is going to be the biggest thing, is the observation haki, the future sight, and then also what does his eyes do. So maybe we revisit this at the end of the elbaph arc, and maybe we change our minds. Maybe we don't, though. And we're not talking about, hurt Loki right now with the wounds in him and all that. We're talking about healthy Loki versus healthy Zoro, but right now in the story. And yeah, I think Loki wins. It's a fun thing to talk about. But yeah, that's the video. I just wanted to talk about that, a little discussion. But anyway, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Check out the channel. I will be seeing y'all on the next one. Peace.